What if you had a way to reach people with your message 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? What if you could serve people across the globe, even if you run a local brick and mortar business? And what if people had the ability to get to know, like, and trust you at their fingertips and could take your message with them everywhere they went? Would you want to know the secret? Well, good news. Today on episode number 278 of the Amplify Your Awesome podcast, we're diving into how you too can have everything I just mentioned and more with a podcast, and how a podcast can actually help you to recession-proof your business. Welcome to the third installment here in the series all about recession-proofing your business. I'm your host, Yong Pratt, also known as Dr. Content, because I help you cure your content woes. If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you were likely anticipating me talking about podcasting at some point during this recession-proofing series because it's one of my favorite things to talk about and to teach. This series is all about different ways you can diversify your business with the resources you already have. I am a huge fan of starting anything, including a podcast, with what you already have. Why? Because I've been on the other side. I've bought the equipment and even the software that I didn't need yet, and it didn't take long before I got really overwhelmed and everything felt, complicated. I would experience analysis paralysis in the worst way, and it stopped me in my tracks more times than I can count, and I really don't want the same things to happen to you. So when you're listening to this podcast, think about how you can start today with what you already have. Deal? If you've missed the previous 2 episodes in the series, I would encourage you to go back and take a listen. So far, we've learned about starting your own print-on-demand business for free with Nicole Thompson. Last week, Tammy Pereira was our guest, and we talked about how to use Facebook ads to grow and scale your business right now in this economy. I'll be sure to link up both episodes on today's show notes at yongpratt.com/278. Now, are you ready to dive into podcasting as a way to recession-proof your business? I started my first podcast way back in 2013, and to this day, people still find me and my business through that podcast. Though the focus of this podcast and even my business has shifted since bringing the podcast back online in 2016 to support my first book launch, it is still to this day my number one way to connect with people, to invite others to work with me, and to serve people outside of my local area and, in fact, worldwide. Right now, there are over 1 million podcasts inside of Apple Podcasts, kind of the gold standard of podcasting. And in the past month alone, more than 80,000 podcasts have hit the airwaves. And we're just getting warmed up with more people getting familiar with podcasts, consuming them, and starting them, especially during this time of social distancing during this pandemic. There must be a reason why so many people are flocking to podcasts, right? Why do you think people are turning to podcasts? Come on over to the show notes at yongpratt.com/278 and share your thoughts on this topic. Here are 3 reasons why I believe podcasts are trending and how you and your business can use this trend to help recession-proof your business right now, with the caveat of starting with what you already have. Deal? So, why are more people turning to podcasts? I think the number one reason people are turning to podcasts right now is for comfort. People are seeking ways to calm their fears, to allay their anxieties, and to even get a good laugh. They're looking for entertainment and escape even. Different people need different types of comfort, and as I shared earlier, with more than 1 million podcasts at their fingertips, it's easier than ever for them to find a podcast that will comfort them. You, my friend, can provide comfort to others with your own podcast. You have so many gifts and talents, and there are people waiting for you to share them. So tell me, how could you provide comfort to others? Could you make people laugh? Could you make them cry by digging into their emotions or by overcoming a trauma? Could you help them ease their fears, their worries, their anxieties? Will you inspire them to take action of some sort? Come on over to today's show notes at yongpratt.com/278 and share with me how you can use your gifts and talents to comfort others right now with your very own podcast. Number 2, learning and skill development. So many podcasts, including this one, are created with the express purpose of helping other people learn and develop certain skills. On this podcast, we dive into the many ways you can amplify your awesome content quickly and easily by repurposing it strategically so that you can reach more people on multiple platforms where they hang out online and off. While I do share lots of how-tos on this podcast, many listeners reach out and want to learn more with my guidance inside our programs, our membership, and they want to work with me one-on-one to speed up their results. For example, our most popular class is Podcast in a Weekend, and almost all of my students hear about it first right here on the podcast. So if you have something to teach, a podcast is an awesome platform to help you get more students in your classes. And by the way, if you are at all interested in starting your own podcast, Podcast in a Weekend opens on May 11th, 2020. And it's the very last time the class is going to be offered in its current format and at its current price point. See what I did there? I just used this podcast as a platform to share an opportunity to work with me to create and launch your very own podcast. And we can do it in a weekend. And even better, you can do the same thing on your podcast. The number 3 reason people are turning to podcasts right now is for connection and community. Personally, this is one of the main reasons I choose to listen to podcasts right now. With all the social distancing that's been happening, I'm craving connection with others, even as an introvert. I'm craving the support of like-minded people, and I seek out podcasts that have built-in communities where I can connect with other listeners. And that's exactly why I opened up a brand new community on Facebook called Creators Landing. It's not just for listeners of this podcast, although I do hope that all of our community members subscribe to and listen to the podcast. It's for all content creators. If you're creating content in your business, or even for someone else's business, this community is for you. And because you're listening to this podcast, I know you're creating content of some sort, and I invite you to join me along with other content creator friends inside of Creators Landing. All you have to do to find out more about Creators Landing is visit today's show notes at yongpratt.com/278. And while we're on the topic of connection and community, if you happen to run a brick and mortar business and you've had to adjust how you do business these days, a podcast is an ideal way to stay in touch with and top of mind with your existing clients. And if you're looking to build a community of like-minded people around a topic you share, or you already have a tribe and are looking for a way to connect them, A podcast could be an ideal way to do just that. Now that you know my top 3 reasons why I believe that podcast listenership and creation are on the rise, I want to hear from you. Come on over to today's show notes and share why you listen to podcasts and why you think listenership and creation are on the rise over at yongpratt.com/278. Now that we've reached the end of today's episode, you're probably wondering how podcasting can help you recession-proof your business. No matter what the economy does, no matter what struggles we're facing, people will continue to seek comfort. They'll seek out ways to learn and develop skills that don't require traditional ways of learning. They'll continue to seek out connection to others and be drawn to communities that can support them on their journeys. And you, my friend, can provide all of that and so much more with your own podcast. And if you'd like some help starting your podcast with what you already have, I'd be honored to walk alongside you inside of Podcast in a Weekend or by working with you one-on-one so that you can recession-proof your business using a podcast. Just head over to today's show notes at yongpratt.com/278 and let me know how I can help you make your podcast a reality. I look forward to reading all of your comments over on today's show notes. I look forward to helping you make your dreams of podcasting become a reality. And I look forward to helping you recession-proof your business with your very own podcast. Next week on the podcast, we're going to dive into part 4 in this Recession-Proofing Your Business series. And we're going to talk about how to use audiobooks as a means to recession-proof your business, again, starting with what you already have. I'll catch you then. Cheers.